into this conversation about when you should have sex and also marriage as a subject. And it shows that from the 1970s, roughly women would get married at about 21 years old. And now, this graph will be on the screen, it's about 30. Men used to get married at around 23 years old, and now it's just over 30, which is a pretty crazy climb. So it feels to me if the sexual revolution took place in around this era where we see this rapid climb, maybe the two are somewhat interlinked, i.e. the age in which we'd be getting married or having sex under Louise's, potential advice that
it's because of the pill. That's
Thank you. It's about time. Now, this is great. This is a great, I've used this, I've actually used this stat before. Look where it happens, 1970. Now, for fuck's sake, Louise, identify this as a cascade effect, and she does, as a part of hormonal birth control. Here we go.
Just over 30, which is a pretty crazy climb. So it feels to me if the sexual revolution took place in around this era where we see this rapid climb, maybe the two are somewhat interlinked, i.e. the age in which we'd be getting married or having sex under Louise's, potential advice that
it's because of the pill. That's why that happened. It's because it used to be that if you were having sex with someone, you were risking pregnancy. And now that's not, I mean, it is still true because actually all contraception fails. And something like half of women in this country get pregnant didn't mean to or whatever. So the idea that it's foolproof is not true. But what the pill did when it arrived on the scene in the late 60s was it gave the illusion that sex was consequence-free. And it isn't on a physical level, not really. It's less consequential than it was because of the pill, but the physical consequences are still there. But I think just as importantly, it became no less emotionally consequential. Just because you're on the pill or using condoms or whatever, your mind, and particularly women who, as we talked about, bond more quickly, your mind still thinks that this person could well become the father of my child. You are still experiencing sex as in the way that all of our ancestors did for all of human history up until 5 minutes ago, until we invented this new technology. And I think that's why it has to, I mean, the reason that women have evolved to be picky about who they have sex with is because getting pregnant is an extraordinarily consequential thing for women. It's dangerous, it's difficult, it's a huge, investment of their time and of their life. And you don't want to get pregnant by some bozo, right? That's why women tend to be very selective about who they're willing to have sex with and feel really bad. And I mean, I've got to say, leaving aside words like sacred, because they're obviously difficult because of religious implications, I think that we should, as feminists, describe sex as at least special, like having some kind of special status. It's not like other kinds of socializing. It's not like having a conversation with someone or playing tennis with someone. And we can tell that it's
been doing it wrong.
Well, but we can tell.
Well, we could call it one of the most intimate experiences you can have as a human being.
And that's why it's so bad, right? That's why feminists are so...
It bastardizes the most intimate.
Dovetails.
So let me be the one to shit all over this really quickly here. Women, especially in the age of OnlyFans, I think it's interesting. They're never gonna bring this one up. But as I was saying a little earlier on this show, is that we've gotten to the point right now where women can compartmentalize the sex act from that specialness, from that act of intimacy, the sacredness of it, however you want, the decadence of it. Like, women have basically conditioned themselves, and particularly if they are earning a living through sex work in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be OnlyFans, but pretty much that's OnlyFans has democratized sex work or sexuality, so that the average chick, hell, I know women who are in their 60s who are on fucking OnlyFans, and I know chicks who are like 18 who are on OnlyFans. Okay, so it's democratized the sexual marketplace, or certainly the sex worker marketplace right now. So before we start talking about how women what they ought not to do, we need to focus more on the statistics. We need to focus more on what is happening right now before we start mouthing off about, oh, it's sacred this and it's cosmic significance. Yes, it's cosmic significance to women who are their age. But when you go and you look at the women on Fresh and Fit or on OnlyFans or on OnlyFans too, but also on whatever podcast, Access Vegas, hell, you just go look on TikTok and it's ever present. It's always in your face. So it's time that we sort of look at the forest for the trees at this point. So if we're going to look at this whole thing in totality, in aggregate here, we have to include the fact that women in mass have become more comfortable with separating the sex act from an emotional investment in it, because the ones who can do that successfully make way more money than the ones who can't. In fact, the ones who can't do that are the ones who aren't on OnlyFans in the first place. They're the ones wagging fingers and saying it's a spiritual thing. All right, let me do one more of these real quick before I get out of here. Just the other one. I think what's interesting about this, though, is like they're still talking about the sexual revolution, but getting into the nuts and bolts of the timeline here, this is what needs to be talked about.
Slightly disagree. So I think I spoke at the beginning about the sexual revolution being two things. So one is the ideological thing, which we've spoken about quite a lot, and the other is material changes, which no one designed really. Like, this wasn't coordinated by anyone. This just happened. This is just how technology goes. And I think in general that history should best be understood as technology, with everything else kind of running along in its wake, including ideology. I actually think a massive thing that's going on with young men, it's not actually feminism that has messed them up. It's actually technology and economics. So it's that one of the most consequential things of the 20th century and before, this is really industrial revolution onwards, is male strength became less important economically. Blue collar work is less valuable than it used to be. It's less available than it used to be. It turns out, America was saying that girls predominate at universities. Girls actually tend to be better suited to a lot of work which has flourished in this era. So say service sector work or working in education, things like that. There's basically been a boom in areas of life which are better suited to women professionally, and the opposite has happened with men. And I really think that a lot of what's going on with men, say, turning to the manosphere, is this feeling of being economically devalued. And there are feminists who cheer that on, but that's not basically, that pretty much has actually nothing to do with ideology. It's actually to do with just much bigger changes in the world. And we should expect, by the way, I mean, if AI continues apace, we should expect to see the same sort of social effects happening. But this when you change how people earn their money, and particularly when we're talking about people matching up, that women tend to want to marry a man who, I think being a provider is not quite right. I think what women really want, though, is a man who provides excellent insurance, a man who, when you've just had a baby and you can't work, or you're ill, or you want to spend more time home with children, whatever, you want a man who can step up and can look after your family. And unfortunately, the nature of the economy means that there actually aren't that many of those men. And that makes men feel really bad, and it makes women feel resentful, and it creates a lot of dysfunction. And it's not really anyone's fault. It's just.
And for the first time in history, men are saying, what do I get out of this? That's what Andrew Wilson said to Tommy Lahren. What's in it for me? And you know why she couldn't answer that? It's because she has been accustomed and been acculturated in a Western society that conditions her to get offended whenever that topic comes up. She literally couldn't answer it. She's literally speechless. It's this pussy. Well, she can't say it's this pussy. So what else is it? What else do you get out of it? If I have been asking, I've been saying, I'm going to end with this. I've been asking this for quite some time. She's not wrong about the technological side of things. You know, the thing that gets me is it's we have a gun these days. Like, we don't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers. I'm a woman. I can buy a pistol and I can shoot it, right? That's technology. I feel safer because we don't have to worry about, we have modern medicine right now, Rollo. I got into this conversation with Destiny. We don't need strong men anymore. But it seems to me that the strong men are the ones that, and by strong, I mean physical prowess, and I mean like guys who actually can kick ass and get shit done. We don't need those guys anymore. Rollo, women appreciate, soft, vulnerable, emotionally available guys who go to fucking therapy, right? Those are the guys that women want to fuck. That's why they keep saying, there's nothing hotter than a guy that goes to therapy and he's vulnerable and he tells me about his feelings. No, that's not the guy they're fucking. The guy they're fucking is the guy who doesn't do any of that shit. The guy who fucking gets, you want to know why guys are more focused on getting in shape and getting yoked right now? It's because, quite honestly, that's what women want. Women want a guy who looks good. Because what's left? Beta bucks. Provisioning, protection, and parental investment is, if a woman, through technology, can pretty much have fail safes and assurances and insurances that, through her own means or through the means of the state, whether it's she's being funded by an ex, husband, or if she's getting money stipends from the government, or she's making money on her own. She understands at least that she has some sort of assurances that her long-term security needs are going to be met. How do they do that? Through technology. We don't need men anymore. We have jobs. We have technology. We have AI. We have OnlyFans. We have all of these, like, name the technology. We have all of this stuff. So why do we need men anymore? If provisioning, protection, and parental investment are already that side of the hypergamous dual mating strategy equation is already taken care of. What the fuck is left? You know what's left? Alpha fucks. And men picked up on that.